Okay, up to this point we've been establishing our different layers and our different dimension styles. So taking a look at our specification sheet here, again, we created all of our layers, we set up all of our different dimension styles. Now we are going to actually draw the title block according to the dimensions which are laid out here in this example. So this is the title block that we will be creating. Okay, so the main basic tool that you're going to use in AutoCAD is called the line tool. It's the very first tool that pops up on the toolbar, and it's a big button that's easy to identify. It specifies that it's the line tool. So we can click on that and then we can draw lines. That's one way. Or down here, this is called the command prompt. So inside the command prompt, I could type in line, since I want to draw a line, hit enter, and I can begin to draw lines. A shortcut for the command prompt, all these tools that you see across here in all these different tabs, they have shortcuts within AutoCAD. So if I want to draw a line, line begins with an L, I'm just going to type L, hit enter, and you can see that I am in the line tool. It's asking me to specify the first point of the line, so bring the cursor out here to the middle, specify first point. Currently that point where the cursor is at is 8.8896 in the X coordinate and then 5.7628 in the Y coordinate. Well, I'm someone of precision. I want it to be exactly precise at 0,0 when I start my drawings. So I come down here to the XY origin, and you'll notice it's hard for me to get exactly 0,0. In order to do that, I'm going to have to type in the specification for the first point. So if I type in 0 for the X coordinate, then I hit comma, it's going to automatically shift over to the Y coordinate. I then hit 0 for the Y coordinate, enter, and it's going to start my line at 0,0. You'll notice the green line that's randomly popping up on my screen as I move my cursor across there. That's called polar tracking. So polar tracking, it's turned on. It's another little tool down here on this toolbar that I have in the bottom window. You see there, polar tracking. It restricts the cursor to specified angles. So blue means that it's turned on. If it's grayed out, that means that the tool is turned off in this case. You'll notice the caret next to it. I click on that caret, and you can specify the different angles that you want your polar tracking to be set at. The default is 15, 30, 45, 60, so basically every 15 degrees it's going to polar snap to that tracking system, which is fine. That's what I want. Those are the most common angles that you're going to be using pretty regularly, so that's fine. Okay, so we're going to start drawing our title block for our A-type paper, which A-type paper is 8.5 by 11. So the first line is going to be along this bottom x-axis. You'll notice that my polar tracking is on. I'm on the 0 degree angle. Polar tracking measures off of the x-axis. So as I go up, there's that 15, and it'll snap at 30, and then 45, 60, so on and so forth, all the way around 360 degrees around the x-axis. So I want my first line to be parallel with the x-axis at that 0 degrees. So I'm just going to hover. I'm just hovering. I'm not clicking anything. I'm just moving my cursor, and I'm hovering around that x-axis. And you notice my length is changing. So I have highlighted in blue there in that little command box 6.8659, which coincide with my polar cursor mark next to the cursor there. Well, that first line needs to be a length of 10.5. So I'm just going to type in 10.5, hit enter, and it's going to draw a line that's 10.5 inches long at exactly a 0-degree angle. Continue with my box. This second line needs to be along the y-axis, so I'll make sure my polar tracking is set at that 90 degrees. It needs to be 8 inches long, so type in 8, hit enter, and I'm just going to continue all the way around, closing in the border of my title block. So we'll get to this last line here, and I could type in 8 along that 270 degrees, and it'll draw a line exactly 8 inches long to match and parallel this line over here. Or if you notice, as I get close to that end point of that first line that I drew, you'll see that green square, and you see end point. So that's the end point of that first line. So that's called orthographic orthosnap. So it's going to snap to, I have it set up, so like here, polar tracking is set up. So that's, the X is an intersection. So if I were to draw a line on that angle of 75 degrees there, that's where that line would intersect. Or midpoint. Midpoint is exactly halfway. So I know that this bottom line is 10.5 units. So right there at the midpoint, that's going to be 5.25 units. Over here, these, let's see, snap cursor right here. So this is where you can determine which snaps you want to use. These are the ones that I use regularly: endpoint, midpoint, the center of a circle, and then intersection. Some of these other ones you're not going to be using in these classes, and it just gets confusing. So I would have them turned off. I would only use these 4 basic ones so you don't get confused. So again, finish out my line. Since I exited out of the line command, I'll just select the endpoint of that line and then the endpoint of this line and finish my border line there. So you notice I'm drawing on the 0 layer, which, remember, when we set up our layers, the 0 layer is not going to plot. It's not going to show up on my paper when I print it. And this is my border line, so I need to put it on the borderline layer. Alright, so if I click, there's a couple different ways that you can select objects or lines. So one, I just select the line itself. You notice there that it kind of turned blue, and then these nodes popped up. Nodes pop up at the end of the line and then the midpoint of the line, which those can become helpful when you're drawing as well. You can use nodes, and it's also part of your snap cursor over here. You can select nodes to snap to. So you can select lines. You can select, I'm not doing anything except just clicking and selecting the lines. Or to kind of speed things up, because AutoCAD's all about speed and precision, I'm going to click right here in the middle, and if I drag from right to left, you'll notice that I have that green box there. So anything that the green box touches, it's going to select. So it selected those 2 lines because the green box was touching those 2 lines. However, if I click and then I go from left to right, I get a blue box. Well, the blue box, it's not anything that it touches. It'll only select what's inside that blue box. So if I click right here, it didn't select any of those lines because the entire line was not in the blue box. So to use the blue box method, I have to click out here, select all of the lines in their entirety, click, and then the lines are selected. Okay, so do that. Select all those lines. They're on the 0 layer because as I select them, it tells me that it's the 0 layer, and I want to put them on the borderline layer. So I'm just going to click on this caret, select borderline, and then hit escape to get out of the command. And those lines are now on the borderline layer. Now you notice it went back. I'm still drawing on the 0 layer. I have to actually change the layer that I'm drawing on. the current layer. So this is the current layer, but these, if I select it, is now on the borderline layer. And you can see by the properties here, when we establish that's all established by the layer, and that's the color and the line weight and the line type. Alright, so that's drawing lines. The next command that we're going to talk about is the offset command. Right up here, hover over it. This is the offset command. That little window prompt opens up, says offset. It talks about how to use the command. So again, there's different ways that you can use the offset command. One, you click on the button. I'm now in the offset command because the command prompt is telling me that that's what command I'm in. Or you can type in down here in the command prompt, hit O for offset, and that's the first one that pops up. So again, I'll hit O, hit enter, and now I'm in the offset command. We'll talk about these. These are like subcategories for the command. We'll talk about those with a different command. It's not going to make much sense with the offset command. We're just going to stick to the basic default of how the tool operates. So just so there's no confusion, I'm just going to hit O, hit enter. It's going to ask me to specify the offset distance. In this case, we're creating the title block there in the bottom of our where the text is going to go in the bottom of our title block. So the distance of those lines is 1/4 of an inch, 0.25, which is what's in there, 0.25. I'll just retype it. That's the distance I want to offset. Then it's going to ask me to select the object to offset. Well, I want to select this line. So I'm going to select this line, and then it's going to create a copy of that line exactly 0.25 units in either direction, whichever way I click. Well, I want that line to be inside my title block, so I'm just going to click inside the title block. I'm still on the offset command. It says select object to offset, so I can hit escape and get out of the offset command, but I need to add one more line, so I'm going to select this line, and I'm going to offset that line. And I'm done with the offset command for now, so I'm just going to hit escape. And I've now started to create where my title block will actually be, or where the text is of my title block. We'll come back here, we'll take a look, and then start to develop this right down here. I'm going to pause the video and we'll come back and we'll continue on.